And we are getting, welcome everybody. I see the folks are starting to, you guys are all starting to join us for this episode of Skills to Pay the Bills. We're just going to wait for a little while longer as everybody gets put onto the webinar. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. We're really looking forward to it. All right, I'm going to start and we shall, as folks come in, I'd just like to welcome everybody. My name is Lynn Abernethy and I am the current president of CAPS Ontario. With me today is Paige McIntyre. Paige will be moderating the chat and the questions. This series of webinars was an incredibly ambitious project for all of us. CAPS is run by a volunteer board of directors and we are all grateful for your support. CAPS is a national organization dedicated to wine study and the support of sommeliers and the wine industry. This afternoon, we're learning how to boss yourself around. It's a journey of starting your own business hosted by Kari Macknight Dearborn. Kari is our CAPS digital director and is responsible for the amazing graphics that you've seen from us over the past year and all of the skills artwork. She's an ad biz veteran and a small wine agency owner. She'll outline some of the steps in starting and growing your own company, from getting set up and drafting a business plan, which is very important, to staying legal and building a strong brand. We will be recording the webinars and hope to post them on our website, sommelierscanada.ca or .com and /Ontario. Thank you all again, and I shall pass this over to Kari, and I will be back at the end of the presentation.
Great, thank you, Lynn. Thanks, Lynn. I really appreciate the intro. That's wonderful. Thanks everyone for coming, and I hope you're having a wonderful Thursday afternoon. Just gonna start off here. There we go. So I wanted to do this presentation for you because I've been fortunate in my life to have a lot of different jobs and a lot of help in order to get to where I am now. And so for me, the best way to sort of thank everyone who's helped me along the way is to pay that help forward to people who may need it. This particular time in our collective lives is one of constant change. And maybe hopefully there's some nuggets in this particular presentation for you to think differently about how you earn money and to diversify or change your earning strategy for the next few years. So I'll start off I'll have an intro and I will try and make it short. I'm going to talk about having a life change or possibly a side hustle, if that's more your speed and you don't want to leave your day job, about mindset and readiness for opening your own business or starting your own idea, what that idea is and how you put it into practice, research and planning. There's financing and taxes, permits and licensing. So those two things are in a different color because of two reasons. Number one, I'm not an expert at those things. I'm not a tax lawyer or an accountant, and I'm not a lawyer. So we'll talk about those briefly, but they kind of pertain to the industry that you're in. And also writing a business plan, branding and naming your business, an advertising strategy, a sales strategy, the kind of service you want to provide, mentorship and support, and sustainable growth for your business as you move forward. Okay, thank you. All right. So this is a very, very, very big TLDR, but what I want to say, this is kind of a little bit of history about me that you can read while I'm talking. I'm definitely not going to read this, but I sort of put my professional life into these different phases. And I went to journalism school, which obviously has nothing to do with what I do now. So there's hope for everyone. And that's the place I had my first business. I noticed that a lot of my pardon me, a lot of my fellow students needed help editing and proofreading their papers and different thesis assignments that they had. And I was very good at this. And I also needed cash. So I made a business out of it. And I was 19 years old at the time. I also started working as a freelance journalist, writing my own articles and getting paid by the word back when that was a thing, and the money was good. But I didn't have any health benefits, so I decided to take a job at Starbucks, and I liked the benefits and the freedom. I traveled and I had a resume and I was really living well, and I was 22 years old. And then a little bit after that, traditional newsrooms started to go the way of the dinosaur, and that thanks internet, but that's what happened. And because I wrote creative nonfiction, nobody cared about that anymore, and so I needed to try to find something else to do. I needed to get a full-time job, and I was working at Starbucks, and they needed a marketing person, and they hired me. I had absolutely no clue what I was doing at the time, but they thought that I would, since I knew the company really well and I could write, that I would be good at the job. And so that was my job for a while. And then I moved on to different companies, and I went back to school for a little while, and then I landed in advertising. And that was a really big, huge change for my life. I did a lot of really great work during that time that I'm very, very proud of. And I met a lot of great people, and I was exposed to a lot of different companies and the way that they did business. I didn't know it at the time, but I was slowly working my way back to being my own boss again, which I really had wanted to be. So in 2014, I kind of had my I'm about to lose it if I don't leave this industry job. So that's a long time from the beginning. And I needed to try and do something different. I was really into wine already. I traveled to wine regions. I was a consumer and a big collector. That's what a good advertising salary will give you. Bless it, I miss it. But I started to take classes in WSET so I could really know what I was buying and have some awareness. And then I took some more classes, and I started to meet a lot of really great wine people, and thought about how this could be something that I could transition into. So while I was in slow food for a big slow food conference in 2016, I took second part of that vacation, and I went to work in Burgundy for a short time, a very short time. I was terrible at it, and it was way too hard to pick grapes. But it was really rewarding, and it showed me that there was such amazing people in the wine business that I just couldn't not do it now that I'd sort of seen that side of it. And I came home, saved really aggressively, and I quit my ad job in May 2017, and I have not looked back. I started my WSET diploma later that year, and I gave them 6 months notice, strangely enough. And I left the agency world, and I took some courses at the Somm Factory and started my diploma. One thing that's really interesting is my boss from my last agency, who had himself started the agency that I worked at, the ad agency that I worked at, I should be clear, gave me a lot of tips. They were happy to see me moving on to something I really loved, and they gave me tons and tons of business advice that I could not pay for from people who'd started their own business. And that's just, it's really valuable, and they're not on the chat, but I really want to thank them for that. Anyway, and 2 years from working with other agents, and I started my own wine agency because I didn't want to sell wine I didn't like, and I didn't want to work with brands that I couldn't get behind. And that is a big carryover from my ad career. As you can see, there's a lot of brands there that, yeah, it's like a little dicey. I didn't want to sell pharmaceuticals or Coca-Cola or anything like that. So you kind of, when you have your own business, you get to choose. So there's the TLDR for you. Okay, so if there's any questions, please remember to put them in the Q&A and we'll get them answered for you. There's probably nothing yet, but so you have a couple of options if you want to have your own business. You can completely change your life and quit your job, which is what I did. And I did actually work some freelance jobs while I was building my agency and sales business. And then you can have a side hustle. You can do something with your evenings and weekends, or depending on the job you're in, your days and Mondays, Monday evenings, that brings you joy and a little bit of money. And you don't have to be transitioning into a full-time job doing something else, but a side hustle is a nice thing to have. Okay, so what does it take to get yourself ready to have your own company or do your own side hustle? Well, again, I'm not going to read all of this, it's here for you, but You need to be able to act on your own accord. Working for someone else, you get a lot of instruction about what you're supposed to do. You get a lot of, advice, and somebody makes a schedule for you. Somebody will, tell you when to hand things in or what to do or where to put that or where to put this. And when you're on your own, you need to make all those decisions. You need to, if you want Timbits in the break room, you've got to put them in there yourself, right? And if you want to have work drinks, well, you need to have them with yourself or go meet up with people. It's kind of, you have to be really self-motivated, and you have to wear the hats, the ones that look ugly on you. You still need to wear those. And if that doesn't deter you, then I think you're probably ready to do something else. So for a side hustle, if you're not ready to dive into full-on self-employment, there's a lot of things that you can do to consider. There's a lot of things you can do as a side hustle, rather, and you don't really need to have much to start with. But there's some benefits, real benefits to doing something, even if you feel totally like you love your job. There's benefits to trying something else. And there's a couple of them here. I've kind of highlighted them in red for you, but it's not necessarily just about the money, although it's also about money. You're not going to have a side hustle that you don't make any money on. Building something for yourself is really empowering, especially if you haven't had a lot of financial freedom in the past, or you didn't always have access to a lot of extra money. I think that's a really empowering thing for all people of all ages. And diversifying your income is a good idea for your overall financial health. Having a second source of income is a really good safety net for you. Should your main salary disappear, I still have a side hustle. I teach business and entrepreneurship and marketing at George Brown to chef and baking students. And I teach a bit of wine too, but right now I can't really teach wine classes. Anyway, so if COVID-19 has told us anything, it's told us that maybe, the comfort zone is something that we want to kind of shake up and figure out how to live, when things are not so certain. It builds confidence and marketable skills, which open you up to sort of future opportunities beyond maybe your current position. If you are selling on the side and that really maybe helps you be a better salesperson, you now have experience that you can use to apply for sales jobs, for example. You grow your network. And if you're looking for extra money for continuing education, taking that advanced SOM training or a big vacation when we can do that again, maybe a new TV, you want to put a down payment on a house, build up an emergency fund, a side hustle is a good way to do that. So a big idea, what do you need to have a business? Well, a business can be a lot of things. You can have a product that you sell. You can make it or have it made for you, but any new product that you put into the marketplace really needs to have a new feature or benefit for people. There's enough, I always kind of laugh. I have this friend that I talk to about this a lot, is that, gourmet coffee shops. There's a lot of gourmet coffee shops. It's not a business that I would want to get into, even though I come definitely genuinely from the coffee business at some point. There's nothing new in coffee that I can really see, except subscription services and things like that are a bit different for people. Service providers, there are also a lot of self-employed people that do that. Teaching something or using your extra time to provide a service are a good side hustle. There's people doing seller management for people and consulting on sellers. That's a great side hustle for sommeliers. Because it's something you don't have to learn anything different necessarily from your day job to do that. And an intermediary who links products and services with people who make and provide them, with people who need them. There's a lot of room in the market and the economy today for, that kind of stuff. Delivery services, if you want to take, Uber and skip the dishes and those type of people, restaurants would probably rather have somebody reliable who can hand deliver food necessarily, or wine that they're able to sell nowadays in single bottles. Just, there's lots of ideas out there. Think about a problem that needs to be solved or a need that needs to be met and just fill it. That's kind of a basis for an idea. So some things that you might need Oh, sorry. Of course, I'm distracted by the chat over here now. That's something I said I wouldn't look at it. So some of the things you need an idea, of course, and you need a little bit of time in your schedule to plan and execute it. A way to track your progress is handy. If you were at Heather and Chris's masterclass on Excel, which blew my mind right out of my head, you can use that if you're good at that, or learn how to use it. Or you can use a napkin and a pencil. Just track your progress. It's really important for you to look back if you're trying to evaluate your success and failures, to keep track of what they are, so you know what to try again or maybe what to do differently. You might need a permit. Maybe it's a food handler's permit if you want to make some, extra food to deliver to people. Again, I don't know the ins and outs of the food business, so don't quote me on that. If you want to start a wine agency, you need a license from the AGCO to import wine. That's a reality. I suggest that if you plan on doing anything of any size, an HST number is a good thing to have, because you can benefit from the HST credits of things that you buy for your business, like a computer or, delivery buckets or whatever you're doing. You can't reap the benefits of those if you don't have an HST number. A separate bank account is great. A business number that you would get, I'll talk about that in a bit. And legal advice if you need it for the kind of business that you're doing. Some money is handy, but how much depends on your idea. A lot of ideas you can execute with not a lot of money. And if you're putting a business together, accounting software, I have disagreements with people on this, because my very first invoice in my wine agency was written, I bought a QuickBooks subscription, and every single cent that I've made has been tracked properly from the very beginning. And the lack of stress that I have about accounting is really, really helpful to me, because I'm not an accountant. I went to journalism school and I can't do math. So that's just something that, unless you're really good at that, or you want to hire a professional, which is another good recommendation, accounting software or an Excel spreadsheet, a great idea. You don't need a business degree to be in business, and you don't need experience. I don't have a business degree, and I didn't have a lot of experience doing what I'm doing before I started doing it. You just have to start, and you might not do well at first, but learning from your mistakes is a really huge part of being an entrepreneur, is not being afraid to try something. Okay, so research and planning. This is a little bit of a busy slide, and I'm not gonna go through and tell you the percentages are made up by me. They just happen to be things that I think have equal weighting in a business. If you're going to start a company, you need to figure out who you are as a company. What do you stand for? Why are you entering the market? And what do you have to offer? If you have a really great origin story for starting your business, as a comic book character has a great origin story, if it's a very compelling story, it is part of your brand and who you are, and you should tell it. If you came to know, if you grew up in a winery or on a vineyard, and you suddenly decide you want to sell wine, that's awesome. Tell that story. There's a lot of value. That's not a great example, but there's a lot of value in your history, and people want to know who they're doing business with. In terms of your competitors, you need to be aware of who they are. I don't think you need to obsess about who your competitors are. I don't think that's the best use of your energy, especially when you're starting out and you have a lot of energy. Making the best company for yourself is probably the best use of your energy. You want to think, though, about who they are. What are they doing well? Just kind of a little bit of a competitive research on Instagram or Google or whatever you want to use. What are they doing poorly? That's usually a nice inroad for you into a market, to sort of say, if a lot of people are providing the same services you're providing, but they're doing it really badly, it's a really great sort of that's my brain goes, can I do it better than they can? Can I do it cheaper, more efficiently? Can I provide a nicer looking experience, whatever your particular industry is? And think about their market share. And, one of the things that is really important to note, if you have to decimate one of your competitors in order to be successful, it's probably not really fertile ground for your business. If they've got the most market share, you want to try to invent a space for yourself that is kind of a little bit better for your business than having to eliminate a competitor to do well. That's just a karmic thing that I feel as well. And the last thing is, how are they marketing? So if they are marketing in a particular space, like Facebook or Instagram or whatever, consider how much that's going to cost you or not. Consider, the kind of advertising they're doing and marketing, and try to be in the same place as they are, just to get some of the same traffic to your company. Now, in terms of a plan, a business plan can be sketched out on a Word document in, a couple of hours, or you can take days and days and days to do it. I don't think you need to spend a ton of time on this if your business is a side hustle, for example. But what I strongly recommend, if you're putting together a dog walking business, or if you're starting a huge company, is to do a SWOT analysis. There's probably a lot of people here know what that is, but it means strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And you want to make a list of all of those various things that pertain to your business and your marketplace, for example, even as well. If you notice that if COVID-19 is a threat for restaurants, and I'm not sure that a lot of businesses maybe had a giant pandemic in their list of threats when they did a SWOT analysis, and I don't think any companies did. Well, some companies will have, but most don't. So that's part of your plan. Part of your plan also needs to be, brand and identity. You need to stand out somehow. If you put an Instagram name together for your business and it's like, Paige is puppy sitting. Sorry, Paige, but I just see your name right there, so you get to be part of my imaginary business. You need to have your Instagram name. Suddenly that's your brand, and you've got an identity. Now you have to work your brand around what that identity is. Put together some projections of what it costs to run your business. If you need $1,000 worth of product to start off with, and then you have to spend $1,010 selling that product, that's kind of a good red flag for you that maybe you need to think a different way about your business. Think about your service and your product delivery mechanisms. Do you need delivery people? Do you need a bicycle to bring your product to somebody? Do you need couriers? Do you need shipping? All that kind of stuff. If you're doing a service, is it over the internet? Are you doing yoga classes for, a fee? Are you taking care of pets? That kind of thing. How do you deliver your service, and how do you get paid? This is a big one. And then your own marketing strategy, like I said. Okay, slide here, and to put it onto paper hopefully I've indicated why you should write a business plan. But basically you should write a business plan so that you have a plan. You won't know what you're executing against unless you have something sort of frameworked. And maybe that's just really the planner and project manager in me that feels that that's necessary. But I feel pretty strongly that a plan is, you just can't measure. Success needs to be measured against something, I think. So the first thing is an elevator pitch. If your business can be communicated very easily in a sentence, somebody will understand it. If it takes a whole paragraph to describe your service, maybe you want to sort of think about simplifying your offering. An elevator pitch is a really good way, like a sentence long, just to sort of figure out how to pitch your business to somebody. What your business description can be next, and the sort of list of products and services that you offer. Market analysis, and we'll talk about that in a future slide a little bit more, but market analysis, you want to sort of take a look at what the landscape is where you're planning on doing your business, and think about your ideal customer. Who is this person? And again, we'll come to that. Your team, even if it's just you want to talk about who you are and what you have to offer. And then the financials that I mentioned before. Those things are really, really key to understanding if your business is viable. So this is part of your market analysis, and this can be really fun. I did a project based freelance gig for an upstart ad agency last year that was helping to market a new cannabis product to Ontario. And what we did is we sat down for about 2 hours one day, the whole group, the creative and the account service and a bunch of people sat together and figured out who the ideal customer was for this brand and for this product. We figured out everything about them. We gave them a name, we gave them a background story, an age. We talked about, what they would look like, what their industry that they worked in was, what their specific job, their income. It seems really obvious, but a lot of people don't do this. And it doesn't mean you're only going to sell to that one person. But if you don't have a target customer, you will really dilute your offering and dilute your advertising in a way that means you probably won't be that meaningful to anybody. And that's sort of the really bad thing, is for your advertising to land with a soft little thud and just kind of roll out of frame and nobody sees it. That's to me, it makes your efforts not really worthwhile. And this exercise can be pretty fast for you. Okay, so what do these people like? What kind of music, movies, clothes, food, wine, cars, hobbies? With our fictional guy that we created for the cannabis brand, we had, what kind of brands of wine he drank. We decided he was a bullet drinker and not a Jack Daniels drinker. We had very specific things that we had come to put into his life, this fictional person. And then the last thing, their dreams and aspirations. Who do they follow on Instagram? What kind of content is going to make them compelled and interested in the brand? That's a really good exercise. Whether or not you're a tiny business, you're a wine bar, you're a wine agent even, it's nice. I've done this for my business. I know who my ideal customer is, but it doesn't limit me. I just kind of tend to put my advertising and my marketing stress on a particular type of customer that I want to serve. Okay, so the next thing is branding and naming. And in terms of branding and naming, there's a couple things you want to consider. Does your brand already exist? Does the name exist? Does something really close to the name you want already exist? That is, if you want to look at the wine business, for example, as an example, and this is not to, really to stick it to anybody at all, but the number of wine agencies that sound very similar, it can be confusing. And I was very confused as a customer, actually, as a private customer, of where I'd heard about a particular agency's offerings. Was it this company that has vino in their name, or was it this, or was it that? So that's something to think about. And if you have a name that's very similar to something that is out there, you may not be able to get the social media handles and website addresses that you might want for your business. And /_hyphen is, people won't type that. I just don't think they will. And then, is there any weird association or possible wear out of your name? Does the word that you want to use mean something weird in another language? Google can help you with that. Google Translate can help you with that. It's all very good research that's free to do. And then, does the name stick? Think back to that ideal customer that you formed in your head. Does this name mean anything to them? So, for example, with our fictional guy that we created, we ran through a whole host of names that we realized it was something that I might like, but I'm not the ideal customer. So you have to kind of think about that as well. And does it represent who you are? If you get tired of saying the name, or you're not proud to say the name of your company to people every time you talk about it, it might not be the right name for you. And then services like Owner, which you can see there, owner.co with the E missing. They can help you search and register your name, whether you want to incorporate or whether you want to be a sole proprietor. Those two items, if you decide, you can do one, then the other. Incorporation costs, I think, on Owner, it costs about $700. There's a fee for them to do it, plus the government fee. You can incorporate federally or provincially. And then with a sole proprietor, you get a business number. You can file your taxes with all your income together. It's a different kind of situation. Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm totally going to answer that in a little bit. Yeah, so you want to think about the kinds of things, and Dennis is noticing there a question about products that crash the language barrier. We talk in advertising about all the time. We used to about how did the old adages about it needs to be easy to pronounce and easy to spell. Then Haagen-Dazs came along. They're like, okay, I guess not, because that's not an easy brand to spell, and people still get it wrong, and but it's a very successful brand. So Dennis is right. There's a great article about that. Check it out. But this simple is really better. Something that evokes what you do in your company, but isn't super obvious. Like WeSellWine.com. Like, why not? I mean, that could work. I don't know. Maybe somebody's using it already, but hot tip for you there. So your advertising strategy, which is the next thing you need to figure out once you know who you are. There's a lot of phases. This is a startup for me anyway. Other advertising and marketing people may disagree with this, but a lot of us are used to launching for giant brands with a lot of money. And that's not who we're talking to here today, unless we are, which is cool. But everyone's welcome. But for startup and small companies, you need to think about a little bit different. You don't have a couple $1 million to spend on a Super Bowl ad. Maybe you do, but you want to think about your launch first. If you launch your company, you just want to make awareness. You want to make people aware of who you are and break through the clutter. There's so much advertising out there that I'm still not able to turn my mind off of it after all this time, because I'm always constantly looking at what competitors are doing. But it's really hard to break through, especially as a new company. Create content that's modular, which means you can kind of take it apart and use it for other things, and upcycle it as you grow. Take great pictures from the beginning. Make sure you create a logo that you can use in a bunch of different ways if you want to put a logo on things. And watch what your competitors are doing, but don't copy them. Imitation, kind of not great. It doesn't make you stand out at all. It just makes you look like you don't have an original idea. And we all know when we see that what it looks like. So shout out people and tag, but use it judiciously. Like I say here, tagging is the oak of social media. It can look really ugly, and there's a hidden way to do it. There's a lot of techniques you can use. Credit and thank people if they help you, or shout out your customers if they buy your product. People do really like that. Don't steal content. Build a website and have your friends test the heck out of it and fix mistakes and clunky user experience. These are all really, really important things. My personal website for my business needs a lot of work, and I'm happy to say I don't have time to do it. I need to hire somebody to do it. That's just where I'm at right now. So the sustain part, once you launch, you want to sort of sustain that growth you've got and those fans that you're building. Don't inundate with posts. But stay top of mind. I know it seems like a mixed message, but it's a very fine line between being out there and being sort of super boring by seeing the same thing all the time, and then being clever and interesting and unpredictable. So change it up, repost with care. Spelling does matter. It really does, especially if I'm your customer. If you can't spell the name of your product right, I'm probably not going to buy it, because I worry about the other details that may not be quite right. So that's not fair, but that's really just how it is. Remember your ideal customer again and speak to them each time. If they happen to be a terrible speller back in your profile that you wrote of them, then cool. There's the exception to my rule. And then to grow, you need to add tools and offerings as you can manage the work. If you're by yourself running a business, I can tell you for sure that you will run into things that you're not good at that will take you way more time than it will take other people that maybe have different skills than you do. You don't need to be everything to everyone off the top. Be strategic and grow sustainably, because you will be happier and you'll be able to manage things like cash flow and orders and things like that if you grow sort of slowly. Okay, so the next thing I have for you, and we're almost done the slides actually. There's not that much left to talk about. Sales strategy and service. So I think differently about service and sales. I think because of my time at Starbucks. And if you're a Starbucks customer now, the Starbucks of the mid to late 90s was a very, very different company than it is now. It was a really bit more of an entrepreneurial mindset. The company was, only started in 1971. So it was still, it's an old company now, but I learned a lot about service and about, the idea there was that the customer isn't always right, but being right isn't necessarily the thing we want to be, right? We want to be friendly and we want to be, we want to service people. We don't need to be right all the time. And I think that's a really important takeaway if you're in a hospitality based business, or you just want to be, you want to take hospitality into your sales strategy. You don't need to be right. Sometimes being wrong is the way to be. Sometimes people are actually right. The customer is right. So the style of sales that you want to do, I suggest you be yourself. In my advertising career, I was sold to for equipment and software and stuff for many years. And I know what I don't like in terms of being sold to. I don't like dishonesty. I don't like the bait and switch. I don't like a hard sell. That stuff really doesn't work for me. So I don't do that. I'm very transparent. I will tell people my price. Sometimes I'll tell them what I make on something if I really feel like I want to share that information. And so they know. I'm just saying, yeah, I can discount that for you, whatever. So relationship management, I'm getting ahead of myself. Relationship management, sales is all about relationships. And if you want them to be strong, you actually need to know how to grow a relationship properly. You cannot rush this relationship that you build with somebody. You need to invest time. You need to support that business with, not with just your dollars, but just with friendship and just go there and understand what kind of business they're in. If you want to sell to restaurants, it doesn't help for you to pop in at noon on a Friday and be like, hey, how's it going, guys? Like, they don't have time to talk to you. So try and understand their business a little bit. I made this mistake early on in my agency relationships. And I profusely apologize to anybody who's listening now that I did that to. That's a big learning that I took away, was to understand the right time to build a relationship. If you have fans on social media, you want to, sorry, Paige, I've delivered wine to Paige, I think at 5:30 on a Friday before. Spend the time it takes to do this work properly. Engage with your fans in a meaningful way. That person may be a customer for you tomorrow. And so don't ignore. I'm still waiting. There's a company in Toronto that I asked a question of on social media 6 months ago, and they still haven't answered it in their private messaging. And it's a very, very simple question. So I'm waiting for them to answer. I check back once in a while, they still haven't answered it. And they haven't even seen it, which is the worst part. So they're not managing their social media very well. In terms of discounts, you decide this for yourself. I'm not the person to say, but understand your margins. Make realistic margins for yourself. You can't not make any money, depending if you're selling a product in particular, but reward people's loyalty and bulk purchases. If somebody wants to say to me, I'm going to buy 50 cases of your wine, yeah, I can give you a better price for that. Of course, be flexible where you can. People will say to me, oh, hey, Kari, I really want to get this wine, but I need to have a certain price point. If I can't offer it, I will actually talk to the producer and see if there's some leeway. I've done that, and I'm happy to do it. That relationship, the producer wants to sell more wine as well, right? So I'm surprised, weirdly enough, that telecommunications companies are really, really, really bad at loyalty strategy. They reward new clients, whereas long-standing clients, like my mom, for example, who's had a Bell Canada account for, like 50 years probably, she doesn't get any rewards for being a long-standing customer. And that doesn't make any sense to me at all. I don't understand that. And the last thing is service. Provide the kind of service you want to receive. I feel like if you are walking through the world, as a person, a genuine person, a warm person who really enjoys what you're doing, you will provide service that people want to receive. It's a really easy way to differentiate yourself. I hear horror stories about bad service. broken promises. I'll give you an example. I'm supposed to deliver something to somebody out of town tomorrow, and I have to take my dog to the vet. And I've profusely apologized because I don't break a promise to that person in the past. They're willing to understand my plight right now. So that's a really good example of building a relationship with a person so that, you're a human being to them and not just a service. And a lot of businesses don't get this. They break promises all the time. They don't return phone calls. They don't answer emails. If people are coming to you, the easiest thing you can do is say hello and answer their business. Okay, so next question. So now that you've got a great business, you've got a great sales, you've got a wonderful advertising strategy, a killer brand, now what? Well, if you're in business on your own, mentorship and support is a very, very key thing for you to have. The Psalm that taught you everything, you may still be friendly with them. Maybe they were on the chat earlier today. But those people keep learning as well, and they still have a lot to offer, even as they advance in their own careers. Keep your mentors that you have, but as you change what business you're in, you need to have different mentors. And I certainly have been lucky to have great advertising mentors that I mentioned earlier, great small business mentors that helped me get set up. And in the case of my agency now, I have a small group of other agents. We're all sort of the same size and single owner operated. We talk to each other. It's like, oh, hey, I got this thing from the LCBO. How do you do that? What do I do with this? How do I manage that? And we share information. And we're friends. And that's a really important thing to have, is people who understand what you're going through in business. It might even be on our group chat to be like, oh, you would not believe what happened to me today. And people understand. Even when you're by yourself, you don't have that coworker that's sitting next to you to be like, oh God, this is the worst. And that venting, that sort of release is really important for you. Because I don't want to release that on my husband when he comes home from work. He doesn't really need that, he's got his own stuff going on. And in terms of mentorship, and I know Christina Roman is part of Futurepreneur. I learned that about her the other day. Futurepreneur is a great resource for especially young entrepreneurs to get mentorship from more experienced business people. And you can find a business plan template there. You can get some information about cash flow and other things that are really important to know, all on that website. And that's some of the services are free, which is great. Okay, and you can apply to be a mentor on there too if you really want to do that. So sustainable growth for your business. If I can give anybody any advice that I have really learned over the past many years, it's be patient, and you're not playing the long game, but you're playing the longer game. And why I say that is that you can't have all the things at once, because it's just not, you just can't do everything at once. And that's just a reality. I think if you're, if you happen to be a mother, I'm not a mother, but if you happen to be a mother, you learn this very quickly that you have to prioritize. I think that's why busy moms who work are probably the best time managers. Probably they can swing in a side hustle, no problem, because they already have their schedule so figured out. They blow my mind. There's nobody as organized as a busy mom. Anyway, so a couple of things that I think are really important for you to know to make your business sustainable is cash flow. I made this mistake very early in my agency ownership, and it was kind of scary. I had to kind of really scramble all the time, and I still had money left over from my ad job. It's like plugging and pushing and playing with my money, and it was terrifying. And I don't want to go through that ever again. So like I said, if I wrote this in all caps and underline it, I wouldn't be stressing it enough. Manage your cash flow. Really pay attention to your money. Your business can sink if you don't, and before you even get off the ground. So boundaries are really important. Set them for yourself, and don't fall into the trap that every opportunity you're given is the last one you're going to get. That's really key. You can say no sometimes, especially if it's not within your service or it pushes the boundaries of what you're willing to do. You have to have your integrity at the end of the day, and it's really important for you to maintain that. And then focus on the right opportunities and stay true to your vision. I have a lot of producers that approach me with very wines and spirits that are not the kind of stuff I want to sell. And I know that they would sell and they'd make a lot of money for me, but they're not right for me. And they would compromise the impression of me that all of the other producers that I work with have. And it's just not okay. And I pass them on to other people. I've done that a number of times. I'm not rich. That's, you know, like maybe I would be, but I have one vision of things that I want to do. And it's really important for me to maintain that. And the last thing is make time for what matters. You're not doing this other business so you can't see your family, your friends, or your kids. That's not why you're here, trying to earn more money or do something different. So remember to maintain a work-life balance that allows you to enjoy life. Make sure you work out if that's what you're doing. Make sure you know, if you love to cook, don't let that go. And if you like to see other people, don't let that go. Learn to juggle and be on top of your business, but you can't work on it all the time. You're not actually creative unless you take a break. That's really, really, really key. So learn to switch off now and again. And the last thing I was going to say is that if you're self-employed, you don't have a boss around to tell you what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, and all that kind of stuff. You need to decide that for yourself. So the last thing I would say then to you is that you really, really set some boundaries, even set some business hours if that makes sense for your life. You know, the picture that you saw off the top of me at the very beginning of the presentation, that is taken in the Scottish Highlands on a vacation that I took with my mom, my sister, and my niece back in August. And I was really worried about leaving my business for 2.5 weeks. But I thought, okay, I've got my laptop, and we hired a guide. Thank goodness for my mom. she could afford that. We hired a guide to take us around in a Land Rover around the Highlands. And that was an amazing thing we did. I had my laptop. He had Wi-Fi in the car. I placed orders to the LCBO while I was driving through the Scottish Highlands. You can do that, but it pissed off my mom. She was like, what the hell? And I said, don't worry, Mom. I'll be done in 15 minutes. I was done in 15 minutes. I put the laptop away and I was able to make a customer happy and still be away from my business. And that was a really huge learning for me. I probably just should have waited another couple hours, but there you go. So that's what I have to say about that. So the last thing I want to say is thank you for your attention. I haven't done one time check. We have time for questions. Thanks for your attention. I have a quote here from Adam Grant. Adam Grant is someone I follow on Instagram who I really like. He has a lot of really great ideas. I hate motivational quotes. I worked in an office once that was covered in them, and I cannot even. But what I really like about this is that entrepreneurs keep reinventing themselves. You're not afraid to try things. You really live for the idea that you're going to find something awesome that's going to really mean something to people. And then the last thing I want to say is thank you. There's my email there if you want to get in touch with any questions or clarifications. That's really it. So I guess we turn over to the questions. I guess I'm answering the questions. Okay. So Jen Wood is saying here, hi, Kari, can you talk about starting to work with the LCBO, especially importing wines? I've heard it's quite difficult. I could do, honestly, an entire seminar on just that idea alone. So what I will say to you is you can email me and I'll give you some more info if you really want to talk about that. I'm not shy about, you know, welcoming other agents into the fray. Absolutely. Competition is healthy. Competition makes everybody better. I really do believe that. And I think we're starting to see in our marketplace a healthy wine knowledge that's coming. Okay, so yes, it's not hard to work with the AGCO. You need to get a license, which you can apply for on their website, agco.ca, I believe. It's been a while since I've done it. And then you do need to have money. I will say that because you have to pay, before you have consignment space, you have to pay for 25% of your order up front. And that can get really expensive really soon, really quickly. I financed my first agency orders by working for somebody else, entering their data into the LCBO's elite system. for $20 an hour. That's how I earned the money to buy my first load of wine. I would rather not ever do that again, but it was worth it. I was able to pay it off as a debt, and it was an amazing. Somebody gave me that opportunity because they wanted to help me start my agency. Somebody that I used to work for, who, by the way, helped me a lot and really set me up for success by teaching me a lot about the business. The next question: would you recommend getting a company email or just a generic email, Gmail, Hotmail? I started off with a generic, it was drinkbetterwines@gmail.com, that I needed a way for people to get in touch with me. Now I only use that email to deal with the LCBO. That's all my LCBO emails, every report and everything that comes, 1,700 emails a day. That goes to that email so that I can, and that's the one for my website as well, that all my website emails and inquiries go into there, and they're funneled depending on where they come from, because it allows me to track them and not get them lost in the other emails that I use. I did buy the G Suite through Google because I have a salesperson that has an email as well, and I wanted us to have the same email. So I did buy drinkbetter.ca as my domain, and then through Google I was able to get some email addresses. I can't remember the price, but it isn't a lot. I would strongly recommend you get a domain name and then have your emails have the same domain. It doesn't cost a lot, and it's easier doing it off the top than switching if you can afford it. So the next question: if you're looking to offer services such as private tastings, can you offer any advice on how to come up with pricing or where to look for comps or companies? I don't understand what that is. What that question is. Maybe you can get some other clarification for me on that one. But a private tastings, I have done some educational private tastings. I tend to kind of work with the person on their budget and charge for my time. Now that's a really hard thing to answer because it kind of depends on how much they want in terms of wine. Thanks, Paige. Paige just gave me the answer. Like comps, I was like, okay. Where to come up pricing, where to look for comps. So if you're talking about complimentary wines and spirits, I honestly don't ask people for free stuff. And that's just my policy, unless I have something to offer them in advance or in exchange rather. I feel that is somebody, especially in today's marketplace, a lot of people need to earn money. And I feel like that's the least I can do. If I can offer a service, then that's better. Dennis has a question. What differentiates your business from other agencies? Thanks, Dennis. That's a great question. Put me on the spot here. I think, and if any of my customers are listening, I hope they'll agree, but I believe service, just sort of my attitude towards people of all abilities when I visit. So I've have customers from master sommeliers down to brand new people who are just getting into wine who are buying. And I don't change anything about myself when I visit those people versus the other people I visit. I have the exact same way of approaching wine. I may have a different conversation with a master sommelier than I have with a brand new person to wine in terms of how deeply we talk about things, but I'm not any more reverential. My customer is my customer. And I think it's really important to understand, like James was talking about in the earlier seminar, I don't know anything about where that person's path is going to take them. I want to help them get to their goals as well as a business and as a sommelier. I think my differentiating point is my level of service that I provide, and I deliver everything right now myself because I'm small. That's not a choice, but it's a good thing. And the last thing I would say that differentiates me is that I'm a little bit very, I shouldn't say a little, but I'm very stuck on the types of wines that I want to sell. They're not all, they're not from very many places. I add them as I feel good about adding new products, and I've just added a few, but it took me a while to find them. And I want to only work with families. I don't want to work with someone's vanity project. I do sell a wine that's owned by someone who's quite famous, but they're literally working on the project. And they're only famous in Italy. So that's something. But I would say too that there's actual farms where my wines come from. They're more than just vineyards. They're sort of biodiverse farms with animals and vegetables and trees and all kinds of stuff on them. And that's really important to me as a slow food person, to sell wines that fit in with my own personal values of the way that I eat. The last question here, what do you think about online education classes as a business model, especially nowadays? Well, I teach online through George Brown. I think wine is a tough one, and I've really seen this. I haven't had a good success watching people taste wine if I don't have the wine. That's been a tough one. So I have to say that I think as a business model, it's really tough. There's a lot of people doing it. And there's definitely, if I may say, varying degrees of success with that. I'm not even looking at the camera, sorry about that. There's varying degrees of success with that. But I think you can do something if you're offering more than just online education. If you're offering, really deep subject matter on maybe one thing, that might be more interesting. But I don't think online wine education, breaking through the clutter, I'm not sure if that's a viable thing that I personally would purchase. But yeah, so Anne asked one more question that Anne asked: what kind of ageism did you find when working in wine agents? I actually absolutely want to talk about this, because I think there's probably many people who are not super young, or who maybe identify as female, who have run into this in their lives. I ran into a bit of sexism in the advertising business. But one of the things that I didn't really run into a lot, and other people would disagree, but I didn't really run into a ton of ageism in the ad business. And I think because of the job that I had, the more experience I had, the more value I had. And when I first started applying to wine jobs, I had somebody actually say to me, and quite a famous large wine agency in Toronto, who, there's only one other person who knows who it is. It's my husband. But this particular person said to me, and I applied for a job, they said, well, we really like to hire someone who's 20 and who doesn't know anything, and then they're totally just indoctrinated into our system. And I'm like, okay, well, they don't know anything about wine. They don't know anything about anything. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Good luck with that. And I'm sure they're successful. And, I felt definitely, in terms of sexism, you can spend a little bit of time down at the LCBO dock as a female agent and definitely feel sexism. People, I'm just going to leave that there. There's probably a bunch of women agents who are just like, But I feel like that's definitely reduced. As I'm more, known and stuff, I think that changes. And the sexism too, I would say in a reverse way, is the agents that are, the sommeliers that have really given me my best shots and really opened their arms figuratively to me to sell to them, have been a lot of female sommeliers. And that's been honestly an amazing opportunity for me to get together with women and to just chat and to have a good time and to really feel just free and relaxed when I go into a place. And yeah, that's in terms of the other thing I would say about sexism too, is even being, an older woman, that's ageism and sexism combined, people thinking that I'm not going to be that good at a new job. And I'm thinking, I worked, with major companies for 20 years. I know how to behave around important and, I know how to, when I need to, I can have a business decorum. I don't always, but I know how to. And so thanks, Paige, for the SMH for sure. Is there any other questions for me before we go? I know we're at time. I can't even believe that I was on time. It's shocking. Hey, Lynn.
You were perfect.
Thanks.
That was awesome. Thank you.
I'm still looking in the wrong place. Holy crap, I should be better at this by now.
And you were the one who came up with that tip too.
I know. I'm the one who kept telling everybody, look at the camera, and here I'm looking out my window because I have a second screen over here.
That was great. Thank you so much for everything. That was wonderful learning as always. And I'm such a novice, even though I set up my business, and going through the whole paperwork thing of getting your business number in the first place is a bit of a challenge. You just sort of have to inch your way through it and walk away from your laptop once in a while because it does get a little frustrating.
I actually, one thing I would say is that I applied for my business number on my phone at Service Ontario when I was renewing my driver's license. So I did it while I was waiting in the line. It didn't take very long at all.
Oh, good for you. I got caught in some sort of loop, but ultimately I did it. So it was
Amazing.
I was very happy when I was very proud of myself when I did it.
Fabulous. Thanks for everybody for tolerating my speaking patterns of ums and looking away from the phone. So, wow. I teach 2 times a week and I still can't figure this bloody thing out. So
Oh, it
there you
happened.
go. Yeah.
So everybody, thank you so much for joining us. This was an amazing experience for all of us. As I said off the top, it was quite ambitious and I had a few sleepless nights, but this has been incredible for me. And I really wish to thank all of our amazing panelists for tuning in and for all of you for tuning in. It was an incredible experience. Paige and I were laughing about how much time we've spent together, probably more waking hours together than we have with our spouses these days. Anyway, thank you again for everything. And just as a quick little teaser alert, we are gathering again momentarily, so who knows what we'll come up with. And certainly there will be something for about World Sommelier Day on June the 3rd. So watch your screens, watch your social media. You know that we've got the team to bring this stuff to you. Anyway, continue your quest, folks. Keep learning. Don't stop, and have some fun, even if it's raining today.
Can I just say one thing, Lynn? Just because I've been working on the artwork before this started, we have Ian Dagada joining us Monday.
Thank you.
On Nightcaps Live. It's going to be
8
super
o'clock.
late for Ian, but if you know him, he literally doesn't run out of energy. So, yeah.
8 o'clock, at caps.ontario. And we are really excited. This is another amazing event thing for us. Yeah. Yes, we've been a little busy, folks. Anyway, continue your quest, and hopefully at some point over the summer we'll be able to all get together. But in the meantime, cheers to you. And when I hit the end button, we're all going away. Bye, Kari.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.